Hello guys and welcome to episode 78 of the Beat Your Backlog podcast, a podcast discussing the things gamers like to put off, get to another day, and oh yes, we'll definitely beat later, their backlog. I'm your host Adam and today we are playing a super heroic game in Ad Hoc Studios, Dispatch, and this will be a review of the complete game. I finished it, it's now currently October 17th, played through all of the episodes. There are 8 episodes in total. The first one released on October 22nd, and pretty much from that, for those first 2 episodes, they released two a week over 4 weeks. I've been completely sort of enthralled by this game, so I'm very, very excited to talk about it. And when you think about episodic gaming, the real sort of highlight or golden age of those games was in the 2010s. And thanks to Telltale, games were becoming known for how amazing their stories could be, with the likes of The Walking Dead Season 1 and The Wolf Among Us winning accolades like Game of the Year at the DICE Awards and the Spike Video Game Awards, which later became the Game Awards. Even though Telltale reached the highest of highs with some of their games, their time at the top quickly dwindled as their episodic model started to fall apart. With a shaky game engine, lack of innovation, and a drop-off in interest, the company's games performed poorly, resulting in closing in the entire company in 2018 after filing bankruptcy. It seemed like episodic gaming was over, and that was as a way to develop games, it was over because it wasn't very sustainable. Gamers were sort of used to binging content all in one go thanks to Netflix, and also just keeping up with sort of putting the tracks in front of the train before the train goes off the cliff. With episodic gaming, it didn't seem like a very good way to make games. That was until earlier this year, like I said, on October 22nd, when Dispatch released. Episodic gaming was back, with the 8 episodes being spread over the 4 weeks, which is 2 a week. And which was even better was that the developer of Dispatch, Ad Hoc Studios, was made up of Telltale alumni, with the lead developers and designers working on The Wolf Among Us, The Walking Dead, and the Tales from the Borderlands, which were, the 3 really, really good Telltale games. And so yeah, it is exciting stuff. I was a big Telltale fan at the start of their sort of rise. Like those 3 games, the Wolf Among Us, The Walking Dead, and the Tales from the Borderlands. The Wolf Among Us specifically really just resonated with me, and I've been looking forward to The Wolf Among Us 2, which apparently Ad Hoc is also making, and I hope this is still a thing. Maybe it'll get kind of moved around now that because of how successful Dispatch has been. But yeah, I did like it. I remember watching a friend of mine when I was in Australia play the Walking Dead, and I remember just being like completely just bewildered about that this is a video game where you're more or less just playing a movie. And I've always liked that sort of effect of that mechanic of you affecting the story, I should say. And with the Telltale games, even though from the outside it seemed like you were affecting a lot, I always felt like they didn't really affect too much. But I did like the Telltale games. I played the Batman one, I played the Minecraft story one as well. I think that had 2 series. I played both of them, which I really liked. And and like I said, I think it just was like a genre of the time which sort of died off because people's taste changed. But with Dispatch, Ad Hoc are trying to bring it back. And we'll discuss in this episode if they really did bring it back and if it's worth your time to play. So let's find out in episode 78 of the Beat Your Backlog podcast. But as always, before you do, I would like to remind you that the podcast is supported by Patreon. If you enjoy the episode, or you have been enjoying the episodes over the last couple of months, and you would like to show your support, please do go over to patreon.com/beatyourbacklog and support at the $2 or $5 tier. If you do, you will get access to my exclusive podcast, Beat Your Bonus, which is a sort of vault of podcasts about different sort of evergreen topics that you can watch at any point. I think there's 8 or 9 episodes up there right now. I'm also planning a new one, which is about my favorite PS2 games, because it was recently the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation. And yeah, those episodes are only available to people who back on Patreon. So if they sound interesting to you, do make sure you go over to Patreon and support. And if you don't have any money to kind of toss my way, then please, if you want to support, you can also go over to YouTube. There, if you haven't noticed, or you don't follow me on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube, I have been making actual edited video reviews of the games that I talk about on the podcast. So I've done one for Hades 2, I've done one for Pokemon Legends ZA, I did one for Keeper, I've done one which I haven't made a podcast episode of, and I've done one for Dispatch. So if that sounds interesting and you want to support, please do go over to the YouTube, subscribe, watch those videos, drop a like on them, and that would really, really help out. So yeah, on with the game and the story. What I'm going to do is sort of like we did a little bit with the Pokemon Legends episode. I'm also realizing I think I said episode 78 in the intro. I think this is actually episode 79, and now all of my layout stuff is wrong, but whatever. It's fine. Yeah, like in that episode, I'm going to give a brief overview of the story here without any spoilers, talk about my thoughts of the game, and then at the end I will go into kind of spoilers for my branch of the story. So if you're interested in the spoilers, then stick around till the very end. If you're not, I will tell you when the spoilers are going to begin, and then you can leave the episode then and come back to it whenever you've played the game and want to hear what my experience was. So yeah, so the story starts out and you play as Robert Robertson, aka Mecha Man, an Iron Man-like superhero who actually has no powers, but does have a mighty mechanical suit that lets him fight crime. Robert comes from a long line of mecha men, with his father and grandfather both donning the suit, and both of them actually getting killed in it too. Robert has managed to track down his nemesis and the murderer of his father, Shroud. However, after being outsmarted by the villain, who is a villain that can actually predict every move that Robert will make, or any move that anyone will make, he does like these calculations in his head to kind of work out what the probabilities of what will happen next, which I think is quite an interesting villain in this game, because the game is all about like, you know, what percentage of people made this choice and what percentage of people made that choice. So I think that's like a really smart villain, and actually a really scary one when you think about it, that if as a superhero you can't win because you can't he can predict your every move, which I think is really cool. And yeah, so after he finds out, Shroud basically predicts all of Robert's moods. He finds Robert finds himself lacking the knowledge and the funds to be able to repair his father's suit. So like he's in like this kind of flat on his own where there's nothing in the flat, it's just the suit, and he just doesn't know how to repair it anymore. Being at the bottom of the barrel, Robert is offered a lifeline by the blonde Blazer, a Wonder Woman-like superhero who works for SDN, the Superhero Dispatch Network, basically a private security company where the security is provided by superheroes. Robert is to work incognito there with no one knowing his true identity. His task is to be a dispatcher for Z-Team or Z-Team, the worst team in the company made up of ex-superhero villains. In return, SDN will repair his super suit so that he can return to the streets and become a hero again. However, both Robert and the Z-Team have to come to terms with the fact that the decisions they have made in their past do not have to influence their future. They will need to work together as a team to beat Shroud and his group of enhanced super villains to save LA. And yeah, that's all I'm really going to say there about the plot of the story. I do want to give you my opinion on the story, though, my kind of spoiler-free opinion, I would say. And yeah, that is just that this story is absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of the best video game and superhero stories I've ever experienced. And it's the most amazing thing and standout thing for me about the story was that it has quite a large cast. Like there's probably 15 to 20 different characters throughout the game. And I really liked that I liked all of the characters for their sort of, you know, their pros and their cons. I really found every character sort of likable and memorable. And I guess that helps being a superhero, because superheroes have, you know, they have a costume or they have a gimmick. So you can kind of remember, well, the superhero that can run fast is called Chase or whatever. And all of those gimmicks are based off of DC and Marvel, so a lot of the heroes, when you look into them, have been inspired by those characters from those, you know, popular comic books, but they have also had this extra level of personality added on top of them. And like I said, because of the way that the game is written and the way that these characters are acted, it really brings them to life. It makes them feel very grounded and again, very memorable. So there's not often games, especially very story heavy games, where I really feel like I get to the end of the story and like all of the characters, like even the bad guys, I think they are really bad guys in a good way, in the sense of like they are scary, they have good motivations. You know, they are smart. You know, a lot of superhero bad guys tend to be like idiots, or just have the plan like, oh, I want to destroy the world, and you're like, why? And it's like, I don't know why. I'm just because I'm bad. It's not like that in this game. Everything is very well fleshed out, and again, like I said, because of the voice actors, these characters become very, very kind of, yeah, again, like realistic and very, very well acted and very well and very emotive. So the main three characters, Robert, Blonde Blazer, and Invisigirl, are played by Aaron Paul, Erin Yvette, and Laura Bailey, respectively. So Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey. Aaron Paul is, you know, the Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. Laura Bailey is the Laura Bailey from pretty much I would say 50% of the female characters in video games. And Erin Yvette, I don't know who she is, but she is fantastic as Blonde Blazer. I really, really liked that character. I really wanted to just find out everything I could about her. And I really think these three are like the strongest leading three actors I've ever seen in a video game. There are some comparisons maybe where you think of like Uncharted with Nathan Drake and Scully and what was the woman called? See, I can't remember. I mean, it's a recency bias thing, but I can't remember what the woman's called. They're very strong too, but I still think these three just bounce off of each other. Again, I don't want to spoil the story, but the way that they interact with each other is very interesting, and it was really cool because it wasn't just the leading three characters that or actors that really brought these characters to life, but I also thought the supporting cast was great. And when they were first announced, I sort of rolled my eyes a little bit because some of the supporting cast is made up of influencers like Alana Pierce, Sean McLaughlin, who is the YouTuber Jack Skepticai, and also Matthew Horry, I think it's pronounced, who is kind of like an internet musician called Young Gravy. I'd never really heard of him until this. And I thought, okay, well, these guys are probably given like really small, insignificant roles where they're just in the game to have their name associated with it so that they will stream it, and that's kind of, it will have their marketing clout behind it. But that actually wasn't the case. I thought all three of them and the other voice actors that are in the game did an excellent job, especially Alana Pierce, who, I don't know if it was just because of the decisions I made, but her character, Melova, I should say, she had a very prominent role in my game, and I was really impressed by kind of the range that Alana Pierce had. So I was very surprised and kind of had to eat my words on that, because they weren't just added because they're big names, they were added because they're also good voice actors too. And something that I always think is important with these games is the decisions that you have to make. And I think in Dispatch, there are big decisions that are very consequential that you have to make throughout the game. And they do really make you stop and think after you've made them, like after the episode is ended, like, oh, well, was that the right decision to make in that time? And if you've ever played those Telltale games, it's that same situation where you get a little bar that appears that gives you maybe 10 seconds to decide. And there are some very, very high intense moments where you only have that 10 seconds to decide, and you have to be like, okay, what am I going to do? And in this game especially, that your decision will affect the story. So you're kind of in a stressful situation because you think, oh, well, if I do A, or this might happen, and if I do B, this might happen, and you have to kind of make that decision and stick to it. And like I said, in this game, the decisions do affect the story, and I really like that because it also gives you sort of branches to go off of in the story. So I think this game has a lot of replayability because you can be like, well, I could see how influential that decision was, and I went with decision A. What happens if I go with decision B? So it makes you want to replay the game, which is something I actually plan to do. And experience, well, what if I did the other decisions, and see what endings I get, because a little spoiler, this game does have multiple endings. Furthermore, I really like the pacing of each episode. I thought it was great, and it was a great mix of sort of sitting back and just watching the game like a TV show, but also being mixed in with some gameplay. Plus, Ad Hoc, so the developers, they really know how to keep you on the hook with the compelling story beats that always sort of come towards the end of an episode, making you want to start the next one straight away. And it's a little bit like Netflix, where it will just load up the next episode if there is one available. So it really keeps you in the game. It doesn't give you a chance to kind of back out and leave. It's like, all right, credits are over. In the credits, it shows you your stats of what your decision was versus how other players decided, and then it's straight into the next game. Which just keeps you on the hook throughout. And it was kind of like like back in the day, sort of primetime TV, where on what was it Game of Thrones used to be on like a Sunday night, where at like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. in the UK. And you were like every Sunday night at 9 p.m. you were on the sofa ready to watch Game of Thrones. That's what I was like with this. It was 7 p.m. Austrian time on a Wednesday night. I made sure that the game was updated. I was ready to go. I'd kind of cleared my evening for the next hour or two, and I could just sit there and play those 2 episodes, which I thought was awesome. And I think this kind of contrasts a little bit to that mix of cinematics and gameplay with Telltale again, because I think they lent too much into the cinematic side of it and the story side, in the sense of the only gameplay that were really in Telltale games were quick time events. And I think it sort of meant that a lot of players engaged or interacted with Telltale Games via streamers or via YouTubers, because they were like, well, why would I spend, I don't know, €30 on a game when I can just watch someone else play it and then go and watch someone else play for the opposite ending? Because they weren't really compelled to play because there wasn't much gameplay to do. This, I can happily say, is not the case with Dispatch. Sure, Dispatch does have some QTEs, and I think one of my very small criticisms with the game is that the QTEs, they appear too quickly. Like, the game is so cinematic, and the choreography of the fights especially is so well done that you're so sort of fixated and engaged with what's happening that when the QTEs pop up, you're like, oh shit, which button is Y, or which button is A, or which button is B? Like, it kind of always took me by surprise. So it meant sometimes I would miss blocks if I was fighting or whatever like that. So, yeah, but that's just sort of not a backhanded compliment, but a backhanded criticism, I would say, of the gameplay, the cinematics is so good that I was kind of taken out of the gameplay. And when the gameplay happened, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I'm playing a game. I'm not watching a TV show. And I think that's still very very Telltale in that respect. But what Dispatch does differently is the actual dispatching gameplay. So here you play as Robert, and you have to distribute your team of superheroes to the many problems that pop up in your area of LA. Each hero has 5 stats that can be upgraded whenever a hero levels up, and these stats are combat, vigor, mobility, charisma, and intellect. And each character tends to be a bit stronger than other characters in one aspect. So you have, for example, a half-human, half-bat character called Sona, who has a very high intellect skill or intellect stat, I should say, when you start the game. And then you have another one who's called Prism, who is like a social media influencer hero, and she has a very high charisma stat. So you kind of have one sort of professional with each stat to start the game off with. And when problems occur, you will be given clues in the problem description about what type of hero needs to be sent to solve that problem. And then you just have to kind of think the best of like, okay, well, from these clues, these written clues, which hero is the best to solve them. So say, for example, a crime has been committed and you need a hero to outsmart the criminal and another hero to calm down the victim. The best would be to send Sona because he's smart and he can outsmart the criminal, and Prism because she's good at talking, she has charisma, she can calm down the victim. And and once you send out the characters on their jobs, they will do a stat check that checks your hero stats against the stats needed for the task. And it's shown as on a pentagonal chart where there are the 5 different stats in each of the corners of the chart. And a bit like if you've ever played Pokemon and it shows you like their stats, like it sort of looks like a weird spider's web graph. And what it does is it puts your character's spider web graph on the bottom, and then it adds a spiderweb graph of the actual task on top of it, and the bits that intersect. So it might say like, okay, 60% of those 2 graphs intersect, so you have a 60% chance of getting this problem solved. And like a little ball will shoot around both the graphs, and if it lands within that 60% that overlaps, that means you've succeeded. And if it lands in the 40% of the 2 graphs that don't overlap, that means you've failed. So it's kind of always a little bit of like a guessing game of, did I choose the right heroes for this task? And then also you kind of like, it almost has a little bit of like a gambling aspect where you're like, okay, I hope this ball is going to stop where it stops. And it does a very good presentation where it like zooms in if it's really close to show you exactly where it lands. It's very kind of compelling and kind of stressful in the same time, because you really hope that the ball is going to be in the intersecting areas. And yeah, if you do succeed, then you succeeded the kind of mission, and your superheroes will get XP, which then levels them up, which then means you can put like more points into each of their stats if you want to, or not if you want to, but you can do. And if they fail, a character or a superhero will get injured. That means that they go back to base, and you can use them again. But if they get injured again, then they are removed from the remainder of the shift. And then there's also like a mechanic of when you send out heroes to a mission, there's like it's like on a cooldown, so it takes time for them to get to the mission, it takes time for them to do the mission, and then once they've done it, it takes time for them to get back, and then they have to rest. So it's also sort of like a puzzle element to the game, because it might be that you get a problem that says, okay, I need someone with high intellect, and you're like, okay, well, I know the best person to do that is Sona, but it might be that Sona is already on another job, or is resting, or has gotten injured or removed, and then you have to kind of work out like, well, which is the best hero to send in this situation, or should I risk waiting, because each of the jobs have a cooldown on them, so you can wait to do a job, but it might be that you wait too long and then the job disappears, which then is kind of held against you on the summary of the jobs, the summary of your shift at the end of your shift. And so you're like, well, should I send another hero who might not be as smart, but it's better than sending no one? So there is this sort of idea of like you've got lots of spinning plates all going around at once, and you're sort of going between them and keeping them spinning, and you hope that none of them are going to fall down. And it's really like it sounds very simple, but at times this game does make you feel like an absolute genius when you are acing through shifts where none of your characters are messing up, you're not messing up, you're solving every single mission that you get. And then there are times where it makes you feel like a complete idiot, like you're ruining your life because every single mission you're doing is failing, your heroes are injured, the city's on fire, and you're just kind of there with your head in the hand, like how is this happening? And that's also where the luck can come in, like the gambling feeling, because it is down to luck. Like you might have an 80% chance to get something like to pass the mission, but there's still a 20% chance that you don't. So there can be times where you're like, okay, this is more or less assured that I'll do it, and then the ball lands in that outside area, and you're like, oh, like, come on, you know? And if you get a couple of those after each other, you're like, oh my god, the world is against me. So it's definitely a great balance of cutscenes and gameplay, like I said before, and it does feel like the gameplay is really well integrated into the story, because you are literally working as Robert, and you know, like most of the episodes are split up to you go to work as Robert, like you see the cutscenes, you do a morning shift, you have break, which is like a cutscene, then you do the afternoon shift, and then you do something after work. That's kind of how the episodes are paced out. So it really feels like you are playing as Robert. It also affects the narrative and progresses the plot. So there are some missions that are they do affect the plot. Like if you do well in them or don't do well in them, it affects how the narrative plays out. So that also makes it feel like the gameplay is way more integrated into the story. And it's just a very cool way to make these games more interactable, feel more like games, and just make the story more interesting. So the gameplay is great. The cutscenes are also absolutely gorgeous. Like it feels like the art style is like a natural progression from comic book art to something that's like a mix of comic book and anime. Like comic book art, you know, they usually go down the cel shaded route where everything is sort of angular with very dark strokes and dark shadows. And this game isn't necessarily like that. It's way more colorful. Everything feels a bit more rounded. But it's not quite anime in its stylization, or it's kind of more like 2D-ness. Like the anatomy of the characters looks like a mix between like maybe anime and sort of like Pixar. Like they do look cartoony, but a lot of their proportions are human like. So it's very interesting. I love that it's so colorful. Like this could have been a game that is about, you know, like this guy that's having kind of like a life crisis. It could have been way darker, and there are sections that are dark, but just the aspect of like the characters being superheroes with their uniforms on, just there's lots of bright dashes of color, which is also very interesting in this environment where you're in like an office space, which is like this dreary gray walls, but then you have these really bright colorful characters, which looks great. The animation is absolutely stunning, and at times it really made me forget I was playing a video game. It does feel more like an animated, like a very high quality animated TV show, which is very impressive because obviously the game is running in, you know, it's running in engine in real time. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Like I loved it. Like even making my videos, like just watching back the gameplay, I'm like, God, this game is so stunning. And it's also kind of flawless in how well it transitions between different scenes. So, you know, in most of these episodic games where you have a decision to make, you can usually tell the cut where you're like, there was a cut where I had to make a decision, and if I chose decision A, it would have played cutscene A. If I chose decision B, it would have played cutscene B. That rarely happened in the game. Like everything was so smoothly animated that you never really felt like you had just influenced the game sort of branch. It just felt like a natural transition. There was a little bit of an issue I had where sometimes between scenes, not necessarily scenes that affect the story, just regularly like switching between one scene from another, there was like a little black line of like a little flash of black lines on the screen, which I also saw some other people had issues with. a bit weird. I don't know if it's just if they meant to do it or whatever, but it felt a little bit weird to me. It felt like the screen was tearing a little bit. But other than that, the game is absolutely stunning, and yeah, it's yeah, a gorgeous game. And like I said, I already talked about the character designs. Like, they were like a right balance between like a nod and a wink to be like, you know who this character is based off of. But the added layer they made to the heroes made Dispatch feel like their own. And again, they're likable, memorable, colourful, and feel very grounded, which is something you can't say for most superhero media. Even, what's it called? The Boys, which is a more grounded, realistic, in quotation marks, superhero show. A lot of the superheroes are still these kind of like huge personalities, whereas the superheroes in this game it feels more like an office comedy than a superhero movie in its setting, because they are just checking into work, doing their shift, going out for a beer afterwards, giving each other little bits of shit whilst they're working, which also just adds to the charm and the kind of depth of these characters. So it's just really well done, and yeah, like I said, it's one of my favorite superhero sort of pieces of media I've ever interacted with. And finally, the music and the sound design is top notch too. It has like a nice mix of licensed music and newly composed tracks. And again, it's sort of reminiscent of another episodic game creator called Don't Nod, where they did the Life is Strange games. And they put a very big emphasis on music and like really like linking music to memorable events in that game, so that whenever you reheard that track again, it became synonymous with the game, or at least it was for me. And that's the same here, where the game it links music perfectly with like beats in the story. Where from now on, if I ever hear another song, I can't give you a good example right now, but there is one where one of the characters is singing. He's called Flambe, and he's singing karaoke, and he's doing a cover, like he's kind of ad-libbing a version of a song, like a real song. Like that's kind of that ad-lib is going to be hard for me to sort of forget when I next hear that song. So yeah, the music is great too. The sound design, the sort of superhero effects are fantastic as well, and it's just a very well presented game in both the graphics and the sound department and everything else. It's a fantastic game. But should you play Dispatch? And if you've listened for a long time, you know that I kind of have this mantra where I say a lot of games I would prefer, actually, if it cost me, I don't know, £30, I would prefer it to be a shorter experience but have every single minute of that experience feel like it's valuable and that it's quality. So give me a game for £30 that is only 8 hours long, but every minute of that 8 hours is tight and top notch and just feels like it needs to be in that game, rather than giving me a game that is 30 hours long and I feel like 25 hours of that is just random kind of shitty side quests that I don't really want to do. And yeah, I think Dispatch is a perfect example of that. A perfect example of quality over quantity. The story is one of the best video game superhero stories I've ever experienced, with its main and supporting characters being excellent and its main villain being genuinely scary. Furthermore, the fact that the game has been released episodically only heightens the story for me, making every drop of new episodes over the last month being like a primetime TV airing. I stopped absolutely everything to make sure I was there, ready to play them the moment they went live. The gameplay in the game is leaps and bounds beyond anything Telltale ever put out, with its dispatching mechanic being a fun and sometimes stressful puzzle of keeping lots of plates spinning at the same time as you try to work out which of your degenerate superheroes is least likely to fail the task given to them. In addition, the game looks gorgeous and has some of the best facial animations I've ever seen in a game, meaning that characters feel more human and grounded and are some of the most fleshed out superheroes in the genre. For me, Dispatch achieves everything it set out to do perfectly and is a game you must play. It will be up high on my Game of the Year list, and I'm sure after playing it, it will be up high on yours too. Therefore, yeah, this game is fantastic. When I first started playing the first 2 episodes, I was like, whoa, this feels like it could be special. But again, a lot of these episodic games, they lead with very strong starting or opening episodes, and then it sort of tails off. But it wasn't like that with Dispatch. Every episode was just amazing, and like I said, it feels like it took me about 8 hours to beat, and every single minute of that 8 hour I can honestly say I enjoyed. Like I said, the only 2 small bits of criticism I have for it are that the quick time events appeared a bit too quickly, and there was that weird black screen tearing. But honestly, I have no notes about anything else. I think it is again, what they set out to achieve, it is perfect. That's why in my review I gave it a 10 out of 10, because I just think it is an amazing video game, and it is one that is well worth your time. So do go and check it out. So guys, I'm going to then just give you like a little spoiler version of the podcast now, where I'm just going to talk a little bit about my ending, because there was some things in the ending that I was a little bit like, I wish that was better, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone else. So if you have not played the game, I would just like to say thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you in the next one. And if you are here for the spoilers, then let's get on with the spoilers. So yeah, so the game, the story, like I said, I really like the story. There is a love triangle in it, so there's a love triangle between Robert, Blonde Blazer, and Invisigirl. And the story, the game sort of tries to play you off against them. It gives you these choices of like, all right, who do you want to spend time with, Invisigirl or Blonde Blazer? I went for Blonde Blazer very much from the very start. I was just like, this character is amazing. Like you meet her in a bar, she kind of gets a little bit tipsy. She takes you up onto this sign and sort of pitches you your job, and it's all very kind of cute and sentimental. And then there's like issues with her love life, where she's in a relationship with another superhero character, and then breaks up with him. And it's very funny. Well, it's not very funny for him, but it's very funny in the story, because this guy becomes depressed because he is like the superhero of this world. Sorry, not the superhero, the Superman of this world. So he's actually an alien, and he's kind of trying to come to terms with love and loss. And there's like this joke where he keeps sending her melon baskets because he doesn't really know what else to do, which is really cute. And I went down the Blonde Blazer track, and yeah, the game, I don't know, it gives you kind of signals of like, well, what do you want to do? And I was kind of like, I don't want to be an absolute an arsehole. Like, I work in an office. I think some of the situations it puts you into in an office, I'm like, this is not really, even if you were to fancy someone in your office, I'm like, I would never really decide to do this stuff in the office. So maybe this is on me. Maybe I'm a little bit too professional in my work. But there are like things where it's like, she's getting changed in the changing room, and you kind of like, well, are you getting changed? I can't remember, where it's kind of like, well, do you want to like look at her, or do you want to look away? And I'm like, well, I'd look away, even if I did fancy her. Still in the office, you're a bit like, I wouldn't want to, one, be in a changing room with a female colleague, and two, definitely if I'm in there, even if I liked her, I wouldn't be staring at her, And there's like another one where she's trying on a dress, and her areola's showing, and it's like, oh, do you want to tell her that her areola's showing? And I was like, again, this is like a hard situation to be in, of like, is this kind of pervy whatever I say? Like, if I don't say it, then it comes across as like, oh, well, I want to just look at her areola. But if I do say it, it's like, well, I was just looking at her where her boobs are, so I must be a pervert. Like, things like that. But it was a little bit disappointing, because I did try to go the more Blonde Blazer route, even though it did seem a little bit weird. The Invisigirl route was definitely more direct, of like, do you want to sleep with this woman right now or not? And I was like, no, because I like Blonde Blazer. The start of episode 4, that is like hot. That is the first time I think I've ever seen sex done well in a video game. It's not this weird sort of stilted, two very sort of horizontal planks like rubbing up against each other. That was like, I don't know if they mocapped it, but that was sex. Anyway. So that story plays out, and in the end, what I got was I got the achievement. I was one of only 6% of all the players to get the achievement that is like, you didn't let love get in the way of work, because apparently I didn't do enough for either of them to fall in, to kind of end up with either of them, which I was a bit disappointed about, because I was like, I felt like I was trying to go for Blonde Blazer, but I was also trying to be like a good human being. So that might have not come across enough for the game to be like, oh, well, you obviously like Blonde Blazer, even though I was kind of disappointed where it was like, oh, well, nothing really happened between us. So yeah, my next playthrough, I'm going to try to go down the more direct route, let's put it that way, and get with Blonde Blazer. And yeah, the actual ending I got was the ending where it says you're a bad mentor, the achievement, and it's where Invisigirl kills Shroud, like she slits his throat with a knife. and then more or less becomes Shroud, or is going to become the leader of the Red Ring. I assume that is the ending everyone gets, that she will become the bad guy in the next season. But I think it depends on I think how Shroud, because I think you can kill him yourself, you can arrest him, or she kills him. So yeah, and I was also a bit like, because the game does this really good bit of foreshadowing where it's like, well, if you are sort of faced with this decision, what would you do? Would you kill him, or would you let him go? And I was kind of like, well, for me as a player, I'm kind of like, well, I kill him, he's a bad guy, whatever, because there isn't really any actual, it's a game, in real life I wouldn't kill someone, but in the game I'm like, well, why wouldn't I kill him? But then as I was progressing the game more and you get to know Robert a bit more, you're like, yeah, this character wouldn't kill someone, like he is a good guy, like he's just a good guy in a bad place, he's not a bad guy at all. And I was like, well, I wouldn't actually want to kill Shroud, I would try to arrest him at the end. So it was very shocking that all of a sudden, like, Shroud is on his knees and you're like, all right, this is where I get the choice, kill him or let him go. And then out of nowhere, Invisigal comes and just bloodily slits his throat. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of shocking and out of nowhere. And Invisigal is played off all throughout the game. It's like, is she good? Is she bad? Like, is she playing you? Is she not? And the ending, it's also kind of like she is, but she isn't really. Like, she is working for Shroud. She has been working for Shroud, but she obviously does like you. So it's also going to be interesting when I go back to see how I replay that, like knowing this in the future, that she is actually working for Shroud throughout all of this. So I wasn't disappointed in the ending in that sense. I was like more shocked that it actually happened, because I was really like, oh, well, the obvious thing is it's going to be, should I kill Shroud or should I not kill him, because they foreshadowed it. And then it kind of took that out of my hands, really, that Invisigal just kills him, and then she just, because she kills him more or less, then is the bad guy. Whereas throughout the entire game, I had been trying to be like, no, you aren't a bad person. You can change you can change your behavior. You can change the way you see the world. But it kind of felt like the game took the reins from me at the very end. It's like, no, she is bad. Like, she killed this guy. Now she's the new boss. So that was the bit of the disappointment in the end, but still it nonetheless felt amazing, like again, that shock of her doing it, and it's just so violent too. But yeah, I felt like my ending was going to be different to what it was. I also love, like I said, that in the episode that there is decisions made that affect the story. The big one, I guess, is who you cut from the team. You can either cut Sona or Coupe. I ended up cutting Coupe just because I felt like Sona was a bit more of an interesting character. I do want to go back and keep Coupe this time, just because I didn't realize there was this love relationship between her and Punch Up, and I'm like, I want to see how that kind of plays out, having seen how it works out with Sona and Malvonia, or whatever she's called. But Coupe feels like an amazing bad guy as well, though. Like, I'm kind of finding it hard to feel how Sona will feel in that role, because Sona is almost like a joke throughout the entire game. So yeah, Sona, if you're listening to the spoiler cast, but haven't played the game, I don't know why you're listening to the spoilers. But Sona's like this half a human character that is a bit like Jekyll and Hyde. So in his normal state, he's got like a regular human body with a bat head, and then he goes into like his high state and he turns into like this mega bat character. And it's kind of cool because his stats then switch. So like when he's in his human form, he's very clever and he's quite low combat and quite high vigor. But then when he goes into his big bat form, he has really high combat, really high vigor, but low intellect. So I'm like, yeah, maybe the entire time he is just in the mega bat form, because that would be, that would make sense of him being a bad guy. But otherwise, in his regular form, I'm like, yeah, I can't see this guy being as threatening and kind of scary as Coupe was, because Coupe is a cool character. She's an assassin, and yeah, I'm looking forward to going back and seeing how it plays out differently when I keep her in my team. And I think, yeah, those are like the main sort of decisions that I made throughout the story that I think really affected the story. There are like little other ones, like I told Flambe, I came clean with the guys that I was Mecha Man, so that kind of then affects your relationship with Flambe. I think that played out how I expected it to, that kind of he would be angry, but then he sort of like forgives you, because my team was already quite like, the morale in the team was quite high already by then. But it would be interesting to see what happens if you keep hiding it from them. Like if the team then kind of come to spite you or despise you a little bit because you won't come clean with them of who you used to be. So that's kind of like an interesting take there. And yeah, I just think this is a great story. Like I'm looking forward to replaying it. I'm really interested, if you are listening to the spoilercast, let me know how your story played out. Because yeah, I just love these games that when they do really make you feel like you have swapped the story around. Like my biggest example of this actually isn't like an episodic game or a Telltale game. It's actually Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic. How I used to love that like depending what kind of, if you're going dark or light, and what and how strong your relationship was to other characters, how that would make the story kind of play out differently. That was like one of my favorite things to do, and I would just replay the game and just be like, all right, now I'm going to go dark side, but I'm going to be really friendly with this light side character. How will that change something? And that's kind of how it feels like this game is. Like it has a lot of little branches where you're like, well, if I do this and this and this, will that give me like a slightly different outcome to if I just do this and this? So no, it's a great story. You can now play it all in one go if you haven't done so already. And also, yeah, do let me know if you have played the game. How did you play it? Did you do it weekly with the episodes? Did you play it all in one go? Are you excited for more episodic gaming? Like it seems like this is working for them because their Steam users every week on Wednesday nights were like over 100k every week for 4 weeks, which is pretty big for an indie studio. Like most games that release now, they might get 100k players, but it might be just for the first week and then it tails off, and that's kind of it for the game. So I think this has definitely helped the staying power of Dispatch because it has been trickled out to us rather than just been released in one go. But yeah, guys, that was episode 79, I think, of the Beat Your Backlog podcast. Thank you so much for listening if you are still here. I hope you enjoyed the spoilers too. And if you did enjoy the episode, make sure you leave a like. And like I said, you can go to Patreon and support me there on Patreon. It's at patreon.com/beatyourbacklog, and you will get access to all of my content 24 hours early, and you will get access to my exclusive podcast, Beat Your Bonus. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.